So I mean, I mentioned that that certain things, like say, for instance, the dialogue between the All and Tom Alden, put me in mind of certain things from your playwriting, and it's got me wondering now, because it seems like, from what you're saying, the idea, or the kind of the beginnings of the ideas for this novel have been kind of with you for a while now. Do you feel like you've been like testing certain things out in your playwriting, kind of, that you might be bringing to the novels? I mean, obviously you expect some things to cross over kind of project to project to project, but do you feel kind of like that you're kind of often testing out things within theatre to see kind of how they might then work in prose, or vice versa?
Well, everything influences everything else. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
influenced by Jessica's work. I'm influenced by what I've seen, these TV shows. I'm influenced by real people that I knew. I'm influenced by watching my soap opera. I'm influenced. And so, certainly the mwah mwah mwahs that started with
Yeah, yeah,
the con plays, I did then use in a later play. I dropped the mwah mwah mwahs. I just wanted to keep them within the cons. And I think I have it in the Arthurian plays, if you've read them. In the King Arthur
yeah.
plays, I use the little tilde, I think it is called. And so I said, well, let me just use that, because what we
And you also have the dialogue between, I believe, Gawain, is it, and the sort of the beast character?
And
which is
right, and since the all is in my mind at least connected to the one above all, or Yahweh. Well,
yeah,
Jews and Christians and Muslims believe that contacting Yahweh or Allah, that it's ineffable. So we can't know. I mean, Tom, in his communication, if this is some godlike creature, their communication, Tom can only hear it on. We can only hear his end of it, because what can I really say? Oh yeah, I like to dream shit and fuck up people's lives. What is the all going to say? So we have to leave that kind of blank.
yeah. Like there are you have that a lot. The open endedness, I think, it is a big part of. Well, I mean, we were talking about the prisoner and sort of the whole kind of moment of unmasking number one. Who is number one? It's it's you, it's the audience, it's number six. It can be essentially kind of a mirror.
But
And
Tom is all men in a sense. The all Tom T.A. He's an everyman in some senses. I mean, yes, he's maybe smarter than other men, but he has the same flaws. I mean, he's a flawed character. He's not godlike. I mean, clearly, for example, he has some petty grudges against the two older women, one who rejected him, and now he takes glee in the fact that she's fat, and that most people would laugh that this fat woman would reject him. Another one had some dust up with Helenka, and so he sort of marginalizes her. And again, I mean, not that he actually acts upon some of the feelings stirred up by some of the other females in this adventure, whatever it is. But I mean, he's clearly someone who's conflicted about, if Helenka is dead, does he have to wait a certain amount of time before he has feelings and whatnot? So he's certainly a flawed character. And I think that makes him more interesting, certainly, and relatable.
yeah, well, there's this whole kind of a Freudian thing to it, I guess, like, as well, because I mean, it is like this whole kind of pervy plot of this guy with like you're saying, the Pussy Patrol or the Pussy Posse, and like level by level, it's almost like this Freudian idea of the architecture of the mind. He's going into himself, or into a mind, and like, and that these women may be all kind of either projections of him, or either literally, or
but also their projections of the TV shows. For example, with the with the science gal, the main fantasy he has of the science. I talked about when he had the sexual fantasy with the school teacher.
Yeah.
So he has another fantasy, and his one night one morning when I was just Googling around, I came upon an old episode of the Dean Martin television show, which was a variety show from the 1960s. Dean Martin was a big star back in the 50s and 60s. And anyway, he hosted this show, and what he would do is there was a two-story set, and he would start singing a song, and then he'd slide down a fireman's pole, and there often would be it might be a billiards table, and there'd be maybe some gorgeous woman who would start singing. So his fantasy opens up. He's on the set of the Dean Martin show from 50 years ago. He slides down the television pole or whatnot, and there is the science gal, who's this beautiful gal who reminds him of Valerie Bertinelli, who's a TV star that was big in my youth, and I've used her in a few iterations in my work. And he's drawn to her. She's there in a slinky gown. She's gorgeous, and they ask, well, should we be singing? And what happens is they exit the set, and they end up in a very Twilight Zone episode. There's a Twilight Zone episode sort of called Five Characters in Search of an Exit, in which these five characters are in this thing, and they don't this round container or spaceship. They're looking up, and there's a light up above them. Well, it turns out it's Christmas time. This is a Salvation Army waste can where dolls have been dropped in at the bottom, and when they try to escape, they find out that they aren't real. And so, but Tom is aware of this. He knows that story, and so when he's lifting the science gal over his head, he says, "Don't go over," because he fears she's fall out and he won't find her again. Well, that doesn't happen, but he's also in order to do so, since she's wearing a gown, she has to get down to her underwear. And I think it's in that scene, or maybe it's another scene, where he says, "Look, you wouldn't want to have sex with me or whatnot because you're too young." And she assures him that he's too old for her. So he's sort of like, thank God, because he this gorgeous young woman in her underwear, he's lifting up to possibly her doom. And so it's an interesting way to play with that Twilight Zone episode and bring it in a different way that deals with the sexual neuroses of this middle-aged man rather than just dolls in a Salvation Army container.
No, that's I'm actually quite interested in kind of like how like sexual relationships are kind of a forefront of this novel, like in a really kind of big way. And like,
well, it's a love story, but
it's a love story, but it seems like it's a love story to the Helenka of the story, but it also seems like a love story to women, as a whole, kind of like your admiration, your feelings of sort of
well, I don't know necessarily. I mean, like I said, Tom has, he takes. I mean, he's human, so like I said, he takes a certain glee in sort of the woman who's gotten fat and that she had once rejected him. He takes a sort of glee in the other female character who was not nice to his wife, and he's sort of kind of dismissive in that the whole book gets more and more focused on him. As we go on, everything starts dropping away.
It's all about him. I mean, I wouldn't argue that. I mean, everything is basically, the women included, like, it's for Tom's regard, and like, and he's very much the catalyst of everything. Don't you think?
Yeah, and Tom. I guess I didn't mention it, but Tom Alden. The last name comes from the Coronet Blue character, and then in Nowhere Man there was a character, Tom Vale was the main character. So I said, let me just stick them together, because I didn't want to use Magoon, and I didn't want to use the prisoner characters, the fugitive characters, because they're too well known. So I said, let me make Tom Alden. That's a nice generic Anglo-sounding name.
Yeah, it's in a way it's one of the kind of the furthest removed of all the kind of like this could be seen as a fictional analog of yourself, or like but it doesn't even, like, the name doesn't bear a resemblance to yours, really.
Yeah.
Like Tom Alden.
Yeah, I mean most of them are like Danny Wagner or Manny Cole, or closer, but
Danny.
Yeah.